So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Galaxy S25 Ultra 1 year later. This phone I bought exclusively. This is the exclusive Samsung jet black color that you could buy. You know, they usually have specific colors you can only buy on the website, but I got this one with a trade-in. I think I traded my S24 Plus, something like that, for this. Got a pretty substantial discount, and I did get the storage upgrade. Now we are seeing that there might not be storage upgrades this year due to some storage shortages. We'll see if that actually comes true, though. It might not come true in the US, but generally you get double the storage when you pre-order, and I definitely did pre-order it, so I've had it the whole time. Now I want to talk about some of the key specs first and how I thought about them after a year. The 6.9-inch display on the front has been absolutely glorious. The way it's been the most glorious, though, is the anti-reflective properties. It is the best looking display on angles that I've seen the entire year. I don't care which phone it is. It doesn't matter. I've rotated multiple different phones, reviewed multiple different phones. I'm very grateful and blessed to be able to do that and then to share the content with you. But I have to say, every time I come back to this one, I'm like, why does every other phone besides the S25 Ultra have so much glare? This one has like minimal glare. It's the best in that department. The size also has been great, and while the bezels aren't as minimal as some other phones I've been seeing, they're still up there and pretty darn thin. So I mean, how much thinner could you want? I also tend to really enjoy the S25 Ultra's smaller punch hole up there. That really does look a lot smaller than some other phones. For example, here's a Google Pixel 10 Pro XL. Hold on, I gotta brighten it up a bit, but give me a second here. So here's the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL, and you'll see, look at that punch hole. That is a substantially larger punch hole. I know I'm nitpicking, it's something small, but it just makes the phone feel like I'm holding more closer to an all screen, which is my dream. I can't wait till all the phones go full screens on the front. I even wouldn't mind if it kind of like wrapped around the edge. I think it would look pretty futuristic and pretty cool. And I don't mean like an edge panel. We've had those before. I mean like it's display edged, literally fully edge to edge. I think that would just look absolutely sick in a good way. Second specification I want to talk about is a 200 megapixel camera. Now this camera has been around, so it's nothing substantially newer, but it still tends to be one of the better sensors out there for a phone. Now, depending on whether you like Samsung's results, the way they produce photos, the way they process is subjective. Most of these phones these days tend to take really good photos, but where this phone really shines is its versatility in the camera department, and a 200 megapixel does give you a very high resolution that you can go ahead and make prints out of if you want to go ahead and do that. So over a year long, I really always felt like I have the most versatile system here on an Android phone with the Samsung. Other Android phones are catching up, but there always seems to be like something they're missing, and they don't just give you the total package. I feel like Samsung's always giving me the total package. One con, though, is that they haven't really updated these sensors in a while. So I would like to see them actually improve the sensors quite a bit more than they did in the past couple of years. Like, let's see some bigger upgrades to the front-facing camera. Let's see some bigger upgrades to the other two over here, and just give us something a little bit newer, because if it does feel like the S24 Ultra was basically like the same setup nearly as this phone right here. Another spec I want to talk about is the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Now, specifically, the one on here is for Galaxy, and this Galaxy version has been overclocked. So it actually always felt faster by a little bit than most Android phones. However, the current 8 Elite Gen 5 phones like the OnePlus 15, the Honor Magic 8 Pro, these phones have now surpassed S25 Ultra, but that's only for a short period of time, because when the S26 Ultra comes out and that chip's overclocked, we're going to see that phone take the lead right back. So it's been an amazing performance. Combined with One UI 8 and 8.5 recently is even better. I just don't have that beta on this phone right here. It's been very fast and very productive phone to use, using DeX, split screen, whichever you would like. The entire device just seems to run incredibly well. And it does feel faster than most phones to operate these days. It doesn't have my favorite animations, though. I do think they're nice. They're not linear, but I do think Oxygen OS animations do look a bit nicer. these are still super fast and reliable. Great phone for productivity, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. The actual battery on this phone is one of the cons of it. I haven't really loved the 5000 milliamp. It's good enough, it gets through the day, but it doesn't feel like an Ultra in that area. It feels like a lot of other phones that have that size battery. It feels pretty standard. So calling this phone an Ultra and putting a 5000 milliamp still doesn't feel very Ultra to me. It's not a silicon carbon. It doesn't charge as fast either. So for me, honestly, the S25 Ultra over this whole entire year has been one of my least favorite flagships for battery. It does get through a day with heavy use, but it's pretty low by the end of the day. And this is definitely not a day and a half type phone, a 2-day phone for me anyway. I'm draining this thing every single day when I'm using it. So that's one of the key specs that I didn't really love. Now, when it comes to the price to value ratio with the Galaxy S25 Ultra, I feel like this phone has been a really good deal most of the year because they've been giving you multiple deals, trade-ins. When it first comes out, the pre-order is very strong. And, you know, it kind of doesn't really sacrifice in any one area drastically. So, you know, you could say, well, the Bluetooth S Pen isn't here anymore. It's just a regular S Pen, unlike the S24 Ultra. But it doesn't really have many cons. It does everything well, and usually you can get this much cheaper than what the retail price would suggest. Even though the retail price does suggest that you're going to pay more than even like an iPhone competing flagship, you don't tend to really pay that. So I actually think it's not wise to buy a Samsung phone at full retail because they just usually have different holiday deals. They give you high trade-in values. And carriers throw more incentives, I feel like, on Samsung phones than other ones. So this phone can easily have been found at a cheaper price point. So definitely, I gotta say, S25 Ultra price to value has been pretty good. Usually can find this cheaper than a lot of competing phones with higher price tags. Now let's talk about the body. I absolutely love this device. Now I know on camera, this device feels or kind of looks pretty standard. It doesn't look overly exciting when you look at some of the Chinese phones out there. You look at the different devices that have been coming out, but this phone, when you get it in hand, it feels very nice. It has a very nicely weighted titanium build. It does feel very well balanced, and for a rectangular feel, it definitely feels easy to hold. The flat edges have made this easy to not drop on this phone, unlike the 17 Pro Max, which is pretty slippery. This one also has a very clean vertical camera. I don't love these lenses, never have, never will. So I hope they go away from those plastic looking lenses on the back. I'm sure they're not exactly plastic, but I don't love those. They already fixed it on the Z Fold 7, so I think we're not going to see it on the next version. But I've always liked this vertical camera array. I think it looks very clean. And the color here, this exclusive jet black color, this looks a lot like my MacBook. So I definitely really enjoy this. And then the top is pretty clean. It's just a simple, clean design. But overall, the way it feels in the hand, it definitely feels like a big boss phone. Like the way it feels in the hand and looks, it just looks like a boss phone. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, let's pull in an iPhone 17. Like, come on. Like, look at the S25 Ultra. All right, let's get something a little bit bigger. iPhone Air. One camera, curvy, skinny. Come on, this is a boss right here. Let's go ahead and look at maybe a foldable phone. You can see this Honor Magic V5. This is also really nice, but look at this. This is very big and bold. So you could say, some people could say it looks standard, whatever. I'm telling you, this feels like a boss in the hand. Always has, always will. So when I pull out the S Pen, that solidifies it because most other brands don't really give you a pen. So that just lets you know you're the boss with this phone. So I definitely have always enjoyed the body of this phone. It's also 218 grams, so it's not super heavy. It's actually way lighter than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which has been nice. And it does come with a SIM card tray, which is also nice. I hope they don't go away from that. I really enjoy that. So yeah, that's how I feel about IP68. It doesn't have IP69K. They do need to upgrade that. Other phones are surpassing them there, but generally a year later, it still stands out as a nice device. I do want to see them make changes though, because I do agree that they do keep things the same for a while. So I do want to see a very different looking Ultra phone down the line. But this one, if you're picking it up now or plan to pick it up as it becomes discounted, it's a boss look. So let's talk about the software. One UI 8. All year long, I've enjoyed this software for being very versatile, very fun to use, and you can really dive deep when you get into the good lock. I was showing it a little bit earlier as I was talking about price to value, but you can really customize the heck out of this phone right here. And of course, on top of that, Samsung has been improving the polish of it, the way it looks across the board. Everything looks a little bit more consistent across the UI elements. Pull down here. That looks nice. And of course, it still remains one of the better skins on the market. Let's go over here and you'll see right here, we do have themes. Now, Samsung is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. And I think if you like a more minimal UI, this one's not for you 100%. This is for the phone person who wants to really customize. They want to use their phone heavy. They want to do everything on their phone. This is going to be one of those smartphones to take a hard, close look at in the Galaxy S25 Ultra, including icon changes, AODs, and of course you can do this to some theme stores on some other phones, but the Samsung has been around really long and they just tend to look a little more polished there. You also do get the dual Samsung Google nature on here. So you'll get Samsung's Galaxy Store and Play Store. So, I mean, when it comes to the software, it just never gets boring. It always feels fun to use. And all year using it on this phone has been really nice because it's across a larger panel. If I go ahead and do auto rotate, I can also do that. Something that the iPhone used to be able to do, can't do. I can also split screen pop view windows. I've been able to do that forever on Samsung, but it continues to be a useful feature occasionally on this phone. Samsung DeX works pretty well when you plug it in. You can also do it wirelessly as well. So no big issues here with Samsung DeX. I tend to enjoy that feature. But what really brings it home for me is the split screen. And then we cap it off with the S Pen, giving us all these extra features. And yes, styluses aren't for everybody, but I tend to enjoy them for just clipping things out, AI select, screenwriting, selecting little things. And sometimes you just want to use it. It's fun to use. I also like to take quick notes. And sometimes if you have an idea and you're like more of a visual person, you like to write out your thoughts, like draw them out, show somebody a diagram, something like that. Like, for example, if you're saying, okay, go down this street and go left and go right, like you can see what I'm saying. Like I could draw this out and show that to you. I could draw the street right there as well. I'm gonna tell you, go straight, take a left, take a right. See, I could show you things like the expression you can do with this S Pen is pretty cool. Also, if you were like not trying to talk, and for example, you wanted to say something to somebody like, grab me a tissue. I'm under the weather right now, if you can't tell, so that's why I wrote that. But grab me a tissue. You could see, let's say people are sleeping in the room or whatever, somebody, you're like not trying to wake them, and you could just show them this. You could be like, hey bro, grab me a tissue. See what I'm saying? Like whatever, you get the point. I mean, the S Pen can do quite a bit when it comes to its functionality, and then drawing, of course, calculating things, writing down your day-to-day to-do list. The options are limitless. It's really up to you what you want to do. So the whole package has been great. Samsung performing 7 years of software support. They've been coming out pretty regularly. I will say that Apple still releases them a little bit faster, more consistently, but they definitely do come out at a very, very reliable rate here. So I've been happy with that. Also, Galaxy AI has been pretty nice. I think it's a little bit more well done here than some other phones. Other phones are really going hard on AI though, so it's no longer really in a massive lead in this department. You could do Gemini on pretty much all Android phones, including this one. You can also hold down over there on the bottom to go to circle to search. So, I mean, the whole package is here in that sense. We talked a bit earlier about the CPU, and really all I've noticed is that this phone can handle, I don't care what it is, games, heavy used, split screen, DeX, multitasking, you name it. This phone can handle it without getting hot because it does have a vapor chamber. So this is a true beast. And I think this is a great phone to pick when it becomes even cheaper as the S26 Ultra comes out, because phones have gotten so good now that the previous year version is now an amazing value. So this is still going to be an awesome pickup even when that phone does become available. So definitely something to keep in mind. I do miss not having SD cards on my Samsung phones. I do have to state that. I still miss that to this day. I use an SD card right now from Samsung to film this video. I would have liked to just put the SD card in this phone and monitor my video, but no, I just got to stick it in the SD card slot in my MacBook. So yeah, I kind of miss SD card slot. Just got to make that a point. Since I'm talking about the S25 Ultra, it kind of takes away that feeling of an Ultra phone because I can't ultra expand my storage, if you get what I'm saying. To elaborate on the battery life experience with this phone over time, it just kind of is that type of phone that you charge. You got to charge every night, overnight, and then or in the morning before you leave, just top it up. And you got to go ahead and you're going to have to charge it again at the end of the day. This is just not a 2-day phone. And I would wager to bet that a lot of people that are actually buying this phone are not buying this to not use it heavy. Why would you buy an Ultra phone to use this thing lightweight? They're probably using the heck out of this phone. So they're gonna notice that. And this phone gets absolutely destroyed by the OnePlus 15, the Honor Magic 8 Pro. Even the Pixel lasted longer than me on the Pixel 10 Pro XL, and the 17 Pro Max is leading it as well. So I do think Samsung really needs to fix this, give us one of the better battery life phones on the market today, because this one is lagging a bit behind, and that's my experience. That is the truth of what I've experienced after using other phones and throughout the year. I also experienced it not charging incredibly fast, but it is faster than the iPhone in my experience to charge, but it's not super quick. So definitely that's one of my areas that I did have to mention about this. Now, camera quality, I'm going to show you some samples in a minute, so you can go ahead and see those. Just stay tuned for a second. But I just really enjoyed this feature right here. Let me go to video, this log feature. It's just cool to go ahead and be able to do that and then tweak it right here on camera, right in the phone itself. You don't even have to leave the phone to go ahead and edit that. But I love the Samsung suite of features, the Expert RAW, the Pro Video, and a lot of phones do have some extra features in here. So this is not like super special to Samsung anymore, but it's still a really, really good suite. One of the ones I really enjoy is the food mode. Those are they actually do vibrant up food or, images that have a lot of color in it, especially right in that center. It will really center in that center. The food mode will really vibrant up that thing that you're focused on. It could really make things pop. So I tend to enjoy that. The camera itself has been giving me softer, less detailed images compared to some over sharpened images I get on some other phones. I kind of quite like that though. It feels more like what you would get out of camera until you like dial it in and sharpen it up yourself. So that's kind of nice. And then the front facing camera does a really good job at making me look a little younger than I am. It doesn't show all my pimples and every little zit on my face. I don't have too many pimples, but I got a few birthmarks and stuff like that, whatever. It doesn't show too much detail. The iPhone, I swear, gets everything. The iPhone makes me look like I'm 3 years older than I am. I'm not a fan of that. So let's go ahead and call it what it is. The Samsung takes a pleasing front-facing photo. But can they get a sharper resolution? Yeah, because it's at 12 megapixels. Some of the older Ultras were better in the megapixel department. A year later, I've loved the ultrasonic fingerprint. I've always loved it on this phone. It feels ultra reliable most of the time. And I feel like I'm more accurate with this one than even on some of the OnePlus devices. I don't know what it is. I missed it right there as I'm talking that stuff, but I'm usually very accurate on the Samsung one. So I really love that fingerprint sensor. The face unlock can get fooled pretty easily if something's in the way, like it won't actually unlock. But for the most part, it's a pretty good unlock in both ways. Transfer speeds are solid with the 3.2 USB-C. And generally the audio is good. It's not Bluetooth 6.0, so they're at 5.4. They need to upgrade that. It does have some of the fastest connections though, 6E, Wi-Fi 7. And generally, I always felt like this phone was ahead of its time when it came out. I feel like all the phones of the year that came out after this were trying to one-up this phone, trying to do things better than this phone. But every time I go to every single phone, I always look back at the S25 Ultra and say, that's one of the best phones that came out last year. And the reason why is because while they do all these things really great, there's just always something the S25 Ultra does better than each and every one of them. Let's go through a couple of them. The Google Pixel 10 Pro XL. We already know which one that is, the chipset. the chipset is better on there. And also there's a lot more versatility with the features. Pixel's amazing camera, amazing feel. I would say arguably looks better, feels nice to hold, but it's heftier. The Samsung just does so much more than the Pixel overall. So it's definitely a bit more features that are very, very noticeable. The iPhone 17 Pro Max and 17 Pro, well, I'll just use the Pro. I don't got my Max on me right now, but the iPhone 17 Pro over here. These devices, you know, they're very nice. They're very, very similarly competitive, but at the same time, they don't have S Pen. So they always got something that Samsung does different. You can argue that the aluminum is cheaper feel than the titanium. So there's something again. All right, you see those two. Let's talk about the OnePlus series devices. OnePlus 15, again, great phone, amazing battery life, super fast, super nice Oxygen OS software, but the cameras aren't better overall in my experience. You could say the Detail Max engine does make them look sharper at post-processing, but I do like the zooming abilities and the log and just the versatility of the cameras on the Samsung a bit more. So there's always something. You know, this one also doesn't have S Pens or stylus, whatever. I know they're not going to do that, but I'm not trying to get them to do that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to drive my point home that the Samsung just always does something, even against its own competition. The Z Fold 7, amazing foldable. I've loved this foldable all year. No S Pen support on a bigger screen, and there's a crease, and it's not as durable. We know a foldable is not going to be as durable as a standard flagship. iPhone Air, yeah, we can go on and on. There's just always something that the S25 Ultra did better. Doesn't mean it's the best for everybody. Doesn't mean it has all the best specs. But that's about to change again, I think, when S26 Ultra comes out. So that's my 1 year later long-term review. Only thing I was really disappointed with mostly was the battery size. It's definitely noticeably worse than the competition. And the cameras are kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth. They've been using those for a while. But generally, it's been phenomenal. And I think it's a great upgrade from an older Samsung if you have one and you're waiting for the prices to come down as the S26 Ultra comes out. And I'll go ahead and do some comparisons when that does become available. So thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you all in the very next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.